Vulnerability management and risk assessment. Most of the time in our corporate world, we use them interchangeably. But actually, vulnerability management is just one of the many elements of a risk assessment. And when you're doing a risk assessment, you're doing multi-layer in different asset classes. For example, you're going to do devices, networks, applications, data, users, and you will do that against any framework that you like. And I'll discuss a little bit here about the new cybersecurity framework, and that we're going to do against the functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So, as you can imagine, the first thing you have to do is let's do devices as the first asset class with the first function. So, let's identify devices. That is the most crucial part of having a good vulnerability assessment program, because you need to understand what you actually have. Now, here it comes the situation where a subject matter expert will find out that, well, how do I know if I have an accurate and complete inventory? Well, to be honest, the books will tell you do this, do that, but to be honest, you will never be 100% sure, because nowadays, right, you have these large organizations with several VMs, Dockers, and serverless environment in the cloud, in the data center, and it's spread all over the place with IoT devices, OT devices in the field, and whatnot. So 100%? No, that's a far fetch. However, you can get as close as you can if you have a process in place. One, to evaluate your current inventory. Two, to start adding the new devices coming along the way the right way. So I'll discuss here 3 strategies so we can get this sort of in the right direction, right? So in terms of strategy, inventory, and devices on your network, first is the most common that you might see. And this will vary in difficulty and complex depending on the size of your organization. If you're a large organization, a large enterprise, might take a while and might take a lot of resources. If you're a small, mid-sized organization, once again, it might take a while too, because the drawback of that is you don't have the personnel or the resources to do it. So it's one over the other. But take it this way. You need to have an accurate and complete inventory. So the time well spending here will pay dividends later. So the first strategy is agent-based inventory. The method here is to install a lightweight agent in each asset that you have. And that agent will provide information about the operating systems, the hardware details, applications, networks, and so on and so forth. Now, there are pros and cons to that approach. And one of the pros here is definitely you will be provided with detailed information about that particular asset. It will be an agent running natively within the operating system. You're going to be able to collect information as you were the system administrator of that operating system. You will automate data collection because that agent will be connected to a collector that will forward or pull the information from the operating system. Can be run on demand, can be run on a schedule. We'll collect information about the network, and it scales absolutely well across your organization. Now, it sounds perfectly, but there are some cons to it. First of all, it requires the agent installation. Imagine that. So by requiring that, it will take time to test them to make sure that it's compatible and not with the current software that you have installed. You want to make sure that potential securities are not introduced, but we actually will, because agents will become older. You need to update the agents. So there's another major uptaking of updating agents, let's say 3,000 devices. That's a lot to go around and start upgrading. And third is it may have impact on performance of your device. So if you're running a critical application and you start lagging and having performance hit, and while you troubleshooting, you discover that is that agent. So there are some drawbacks on that. So So when this strategy is best introduced on an organization? Well, the best is that it provides extensive data information for you. And if for large organization, managing known devices. So installing agents provide greater detail, but also may have impact on the performance, but it only will be installed on devices that you already know that exists. That's one. The other drawback here is that it will not be able to install in every device. It might be able to install on a server, on a Windows, on a Linux, on a Unix operating system, perhaps not on database A versus database B, perhaps not on that IoT device, perhaps not on that OT device. So having an agent that can be installing all these various environments is hard to find because usually these organizations focus and specialize in one area, in one type of asset. So, and also part of the asset classification, let me explain a little bit of that. We talk about servers, routers, switches, firewalls, and so on and so forth. So it's just basically servers, databases, and network devices, IoT devices. And the IoT device, and also have your personal devices. So if you, the organization, offer a smartphone as part of the organization, or a tablet, or anything else, or network printers in the organization, those are part of the asset classification. That's the asset class, if you will. So yes, having an agent that can expand that amount of various devices is hard. So that inventory will be limited to the capability of that software agent. The second one is network-based inventory. Now here we have a different approach. So the man is utilize protocols like SNMP, DHCP, and other applications to collect information from the network. So the pros is no agent. Right off the bat, you don't require an agent because you're not going to be installed. You're going to be sort of the network interrogating information from these devices from the outside. May miss hidden or inactive devices. That's one of the cons here, because if you don't know about a particular subnet, or you don't know about a particular deployment of systems on a network that were not part of your inventory, you will miss that. But another pro here is the limitation of having the agent, that you cannot, inventory everything because the agent is limited to its capability and compatibility. Network devices are going to be able to pick up everything that sends information across network and communicates, or have an IP address that you can actually ping and touch it and see it. You'll be able to collect information from it. Now, the other cons here is that you will have limited data. So on an agent base, you collect from the inside. This one, you're going to collect from the outside. There's no way in. The only information you're going to be able to collect is whatever port is open and whatever information is being broadcast or assigned to that particular port number, that the agent from the outside is going to be able to collect and read the banner and say, well, yes, operating system X usually has this port open. So basically it's sort of a guesstimation. So you will have some limitation. Also, your limitation is going to be tied to the SNMP capabilities of collecting that information. What is this best for is identifying unknown devices. So the shortcoming you had with the agent base, that you will install on known devices, here you'll be able to collect information from unknown devices that perhaps you didn't know existed. The third is a passive network monitoring. And passive basically is that exactly what it says, right? You're just going to sit there, you're going to listen to the traffic, you're going to start collecting information. You see a traffic go across the network, you're going to see where it came from, where it's going to. You're going to be able to collect that information. Also, what protocol it went, what port it went. You're going to be able to collect that, and you sit there and monitor. Get MAC addresses, for example, understand what devices you have there, and tracking those. The pros, no agent installation once again. Detect unauthorized devices, you're going to be able to do that as well because you will be sitting there and watching the network, catching transient devices. So someone that just logged in for a day or two and left. Network based, usually that is a schedule scanning or once a week scanning, once a month scanning. Either way is a schedule scanning. A passive just going to sit there forever listening 24/7. So you will be able to catch these transit devices, which combine, let me go on a tangent here a little bit, but if you combine with other tools and applications that will alert you of a unknown device on network, it can trigger other activities on your team, such as an incident response team or a CERT team to see what that device is, and so on and so forth is illegal on your network. Either way, coming back, right? So is the best for is to identify unknown devices or devices that are transient on your network. And of course, you will collect not much detailed information using this particular strategy. So the three strategy here that we discussed, let me recap to you, is agent-based, network-based, and passive network monitoring. Which one is best? Well, the best strategy will employ all three. There's no best strategy. The best strategy is employing all three and be very comprehensive as you monitor this. So additional considerations here for you. Centralized management. Make sure that you have a way to collect all that information in one place and be able to understand what you have. So basically, you will have that asset inventory. Regular updates. Don't do just once and forget. This is strategy to collect information that is already there, already deployed. Two things with that. One is you didn't know, now you're collecting. Now you have an inventory. Two, you collecting, validating the information that you already have in this centralized location. And as you do this, you will do on a regular basis. You set once a quarter, once a month, once every 6 months. Right? I won't go beyond that. And if you have a way to do this continuously, please do so. That is the ongoing. But what happened with new stuff that is coming in? While you're doing that, we'll continue deploying assets. So you need to establish a proper onboarding process that funnel every new device through that process that need to be registered, need to be accounted for, collecting the right information right before going to the wire, right before going live. So you need to, identify what you have and stop the bleeding, because you will start coming in. They will never stop. And that is for devices on your database and on your data center and devices in the cloud that can be unruly if you don't put some guardrails around. And have, of course, policy enforcement. You need to educate everyone that actually works in deploying, developing these devices, that because your system administrators will focus on servers and databases. Your network administrator focus on network devices, router switches, and firewalls. But who focus on OT devices, who focus on IoT devices, who focus on desktop devices or mobile devices such as your phone and tablet. All of them need to be part of this policy enforcement, this new process that funnel through in a method that will register them as a part of their onboarding and also be taught on how to do it. So the difficulty, this is alluded earlier, will depend on the size of your organization. It will depend on network size and complexity, the security and privacy concern that you have for your organization, and the budget and, of course, technical expertise of your team. Now, I touch a lot of things here, but one of the things that I want to bring to your attention is, what is the confidence level of your current inventory? That usually happens when you're doing a risk assessment. You will identify an environment based on criticalities, and that might be very high to very low, high to low, or anything else that your organization decided to be. Now, the first question you're going to be asked perhaps is, why do you think this is high? Well, first of all, as the cybersecurity expert, you can answer that question, but to answer that question is a separate assessment. You will have to assess the methodology that was put in place to identify what is high, medium, and low. If that's the direction you want to go, that should be your first step, because then you're going to be validating not only the inventory in terms of what assets are in it, but also validating how they are being classified, if they are being classified correctly. Am I assessing really high, or it was mislabeled, supposed to be a medium or a low? So assessing the classification itself is up to you. You decide if that's the direction you go. I would recommend for you, as your first assessment, get you out of the gate, get you start providing value. You take the assessment, the value, the classification at face value. You say, in your assessment, the high, what I'm taking is how, the IT organization classified, the business organization classified, this is a high. I'm taking that as face value. I will not validate. They are the subject matter expert of that device. They know how important that device is for the organization. So there's two paths here you need to take. One, you want to go and validate the classification itself, or you want to go ahead and start your risk assessment. If you decide to go one versus the other, you just take that path and make sure it's done correctly and completely. But in this case, I will just discuss here, you take face value. So the devices are high, they have impacted the organization. That high could be because of the device cannot be down, or because you support the mission, the organization, the vision, or whatever they may be. Like I said, the methodology, you're not assessing the methodology itself. So, but you will require some triangulation here to validate your inventory and to enhance your confidence level on the inventory that you currently have. First, you're going to employ a sort of a multiple inventory methodologies. And like I said, network-based, agent-based, and passive monitoring is sort of different inventory, but you also can do other ones by doing manual inventory, by doing walkthroughs, which, if you cloud first or your company was born in a cloud, these walkthroughs are impossible. But, is one of those, if you're a small company, that you have assets on a back room, yes, you can do a walkthrough. You have a data center, yes, you can do that. But those are different type of inventories that you can evaluate and enhance your confidence level that your inventory is accurate. Second, you're going to compare results. Yes, if your validation does not match your inventory, so now you need to investigate what's the delta. What went wrong? What happened? Someone or some group did not follow the process that we put into place. What happened there? You're going to investigate. Lastly, you're going to leverage external resources that you may have. For example, your SIM that is collecting information. Does all the IPs that are reporting to your SIM are on your inventory list? Because it might be collecting, and all of a sudden you have that delta. So you're going to use this triangulation to ensure and enhance your confidence on the inventory that you have. So, and remember, I mentioned manual verification. The physical walkthrough is one. User survey is another. Send a survey to all users and ask them what systems they use. They may or may not know, because if I'm just a user of the interface, I don't know what systems is behind the scenes and providing me that application. But you send to those users, the technical users that support that environment, and see what systems, what names would be one of them, and documentation review. There are pros and cons of all of this. The bottom line is a triangulation. It's just supporting you actually inventory, validating that. Documentation, well, if you don't know that device exists, probably you don't have documentation for it. But that's not the case. Those are just auxiliary processes that you can put in place to enhance your confidence level. Lastly, continuous improvement. You will continue doing this. Not only the asset inventory, you're going to continuously do this triangulation and validating the inventory. I'll say this. You can set this at once a quarter or once a year, whatever you feel confident, whatever you feel comfortable for your organization, and do a sort of a sample set of your entire environment, and to do this triangulation. Just randomly pick systems or selectively pick systems on your entire inventory, and validate if they went through the process, or do these triangulations randomly and validate your systems. So do on a sample set. See if, and you can even be specific on your sample set. You can establish a sample that represent total population. There's calculations for that. And you can be confident that, yes, I only found one systems among, 3,000, or I didn't find anything. Well, I found that, extensive findings that these systems are not following the process. So you can establish that. All depends on your risk appetite, on your organization's objectives with the risk assessment. So some additional tips here is you need to define what complete means. You need to be very clear. What is complete and accurate inventory means to your organization. Communicate the expectations of your risk assessment. Communicate the expectations of your inventory requirements. What data do you need? Where do you need it? What is needed for the onboarding process of these devices? And lastly, involve all your stakeholders. Don't do this from behind the scenes, shooting emails, shooting surveys, collecting information, scanning the network. Involve them. They are also need to be aware, involved, and few part owners of this process, so they can maintain this continuously throughout your network.